This is Steve Zeltzer with WorkWeek, and there is a ongoing battle in Argentina over the Milei government, which won the election, and Milei is president, and he's been instituting privatization and repression against the left and against unions. He tried to outlaw rallies of more than 3 people, and he's carrying out the policy of the IMF and the United States. And joining us is Guillermo Kane. He's a deputy in the Buenos Aires legislature, and also he's a member of the PO and has been involved in organizing defense of working people in the union. So welcome to our show, Guillermo.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
So, Guillermo, there's going to be a rally on the 12th of workers, students, people in Argentina against the kind of attacks. What is going on in Argentina at this point, and why are people going to be rallying on the 12th?
The 12th is going to be like a very important rally, we think, because there's going to be a bill discussed in the Senate that has already had a vote has already been passed in the lower house, and this bill attacks many aspects of working class conquests of many decades. It is a very extensive labor reform. It also puts forth persecution of unions, for example, with severe criminal charges for protests that include, for example, blocking the entrance to a company, which is a common action, of course, in a strike picket. And includes, among other things, privatizations of railways, of the state airline company, and many important public services, and also something that's called the RI, which is it's a special regime of tax and legislation for large enterprises or large investments, which will mostly be, because of the size of the investments, foreign investors. So basically, it's a special regime that they've discussed with people like Elon Musk to take the lithium from our country and other natural resources that large monopolies are interested in. So the opposition to this bill has been rising. Together with this, they will also vote a tax bill, or want to vote a tax bill, which reinstitutes applying to workers' wages what they call income tax. Which has a very low bar. So any well-paid worker has to pay income tax as if he was a businessman. So all of these things are set for debate among many other reactionary articles in the Congress on Wednesday. And though the trade union bureaucracy has not called a general strike, many sectors of the trade unions are calling to mobilize, and some unions, for example, those led by the left, are striking to ensure mass participation of workers those days. For example, our comrades that lead the tire workers union, the university professors of the University of Buenos Aires, and several state workers and teachers unions are striking that day and are marching to the Congress where this debate will be held. The left parties, the unemployed workers' organizations, and many more are calling to mobilize and are demanding at the same time that the union confederations call for a continued plan of action, because just one day is, of course, not going to stop the Milei government. This will also be an important march because in the last few weeks, we've had an escalation in the amount of repression and political persecution, with a big campaign to try to criminalize piquetero organizations, unemployed workers organizations, and present them as corrupt with false charges, and a big media attack campaign, which included on the legal and political espionage side, a police raid on the main offices of our party, of the Workers' Party, Partido Obrero, which is a member of the Left Front. So this march opposes Milei's bill and will also be the most important public demonstration in these days after this police raid and police repression against many smaller, more individual sectors that were mobilizing, for example, against layoffs and pensioners who were recently picketing the Congress, demanding an increase in pensions, while there was a debate on this issue going on in Congress as well. So we are agitating workplaces and places of study and working very hard to put together a mass demonstration this week that could be an important blow against the campaign of the Milei government against working class organizations.
And what is the role of the United States in the IMF, the military? I understand the United States wants a base in Argentina. The CIA has been visiting Argentina. Is the United States intervening in what's going on in Argentina?
Yes, very much. I mean, Milei is trying to get more financing from the IMF, and while the United States government can clearly see that Milei's policy is generating a huge recession and has even made some, how do you say this? Some has pointed out that with the amount of layoffs and the increase in poverty, tax, how do you say the amount of tax that is collected, tax collection will be lower, and thus it will be more difficult for the government to pay the foreign debt. Milei is very much stressing that he will be an ally of the United States against China in the region, and that he is deeply anti-communist and anti-working class, and that he is very much pro-United States. There have been some friction with the Biden administration because of Milei's open support of Trump and his presence in the APEC conference in Washington. But he has advanced, for example, giving the U.S. a base in the south of the country, in Tierra del Fuego, where he did a public official act together with Laura Richardson, who is a commander of the fleet in the southern Americas. And he has also, had meetings with the CIA, and has committed in general to try to be a representative of the U.S. and of the conflict with China. He has a limit in the conflict with China because of the bad economic situation of the country and the financial and commercial difficulties that a full-on clash with China could bring for a government that is on the verge of bankruptcy and wants to try to cash in a swap in yuan that the previous government had arranged with China, for example, and that could help avoid a possible default later in the year. And they are, on the one hand, attacking China, and on the other, trying to cash in from China if the U.S. and the IMF don't give the financial advances that the Milei government is asking for.
And Milei has been traveling all over the world, I understand he's going to the Vox conference. He's going to be honored, given an award. He was in the Bay Area a week and a half ago, and he was met with Mark Zuckerberg and other tech barons, AI people. Elon Musk, as you said, is supporting him. Peter Thiel. He's operating internationally. You think he's trying to build a global fascist front, and as part of that effort to build fascism internationally?
He's definitely promoting a fascistoid or ultra-right movement, and is trying to give an idea of international prestige or fame as something to show in Argentina, where his government is going through very severe crisis, cases of corruption. Over 24 central officials have resigned from the cabinet or state secretaries in different political scandals in these few 6 months, and an economic catastrophe. So his response is not to be here trying to solve these things, but to try to have like a PR battle, because these meetings with Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and so on have not led to important investments or any sort of advancing, but he's more trying to present a political leadership for a very insane ultra-right point of view. Let's remember he went to the Davos Forum and said that those present were mostly socialists, talking to the capitalists of the world. So he's definitely got a very twisted political and economic perception. He has also been in these hours saluting the electoral advances of the ultra-right parties in Europe, and yesterday's election, talking about Meloni, Le Pen, and so on, as being part of the same political current that he identifies with. The problem is that however much international support he can try to gain, as he has also very much tied himself to Zelensky, to Netanyahu, so trying to show himself as a vanguard of imperialist interests here in Argentina and Latin America. The reality is he is pushing the local working class to a catastrophe. The gross national product has reduced itself 10% in these 6 months. 3 million Argentinian workers have fallen below the poverty line. We've had at least 300,000 layoffs, probably more if we had good numbers on non-registered workers. It could go up to to double that, I mean. And he's cut off all social assistance to soup kitchens who used to receive at least food to feed impoverished people. He's cut off completely. So he is pushing for a social and economic catastrophe, which has started to give to have important responses. For example, in the northeastern province of Misiones, which is on the frontier with Brazil and Paraguay, last Friday, the teachers and other state workers, after a very long strike, which practically turned into a popular rebellion, which included roadblocks, clashes with police brought from outside the province, because the local police actually joined the strike for a few weeks, and very important demonstrations and so on. They managed to double the wages they were getting. So the rebellion against poverty wages and the level of hunger and destruction of the wages in Argentina has begun, and we think we will be seeing popular rebellions like the one we've just seen in the province of Misiones start to spread out over the country.
And he is privatizing the public resources, as you said, public schools, public education. What is the program of the left, the left front and the Workers' Party in relationship to how to solve this economic crisis in Argentina?
Well, to start off, stop paying the foreign debt, which is the biggest drain on the economy and has been for many years. It's a debt that's unpayable, that's criminal, and which has been an act of defrauding the state and the Argentine people for decades on end. It is basically a mechanism for imperialist domination. So we need to cut off payment of the foreign debt. We need to nationalize the banking system, closing off the possibility of financial capital organizing the capital leaving the country to try to operate against Argentina, as has often happened with vulture capital and so on, vulture funds and so on. We, under workers' control, we need to also put international commerce under workers' control. So the dollars, the very important sum of dollars that are gained from the selling of Argentine agricultural products the world over are part of the riches that can be used in a plan of reindustrialization of the country. We have an important resource in lithium, but of course bourgeois governments in Argentina are under the imperialist division of labor in the world and are not building an industry which can make Argentina produce the sort of technology of batteries of lithium which are necessary for electric cars, for cell phones, for computers, and for so many other central technological developments. They just want to make a short profit selling these our natural resources to the world instead of industrializing the country. So we think both Argentina and the neighboring countries could ally to form the United Socialist States of Latin America on the basis of putting our wealth and our natural resources into a plan of industrialization under workers' control.
And Argentina is a very rich country, tremendous resources, meat, all kinds of products, yet the starvation is growing in Argentina. Why don't you talk about that and the political ramifications of that among the working class and the poor in Argentina?
Yeah, it's we produce food for approximately that could feed 400 million people, and we are 47 million inhabitants in Argentina. So a workers' government would have an easy time of solving the problem of hunger with simple distribution and still have a huge production to sell to the rest of the world. Of course, capitalist distribution does not function in this way. And foodstuffs that cannot be used in time are destroyed before lowering the market price. The problem with Argentina, which has been a problem for many decades, is that its inner market has formed in such a way that our main foodstuffs are also our main exportation and are sold inside Argentina at roughly the same price that can be achieved on the international market. It is not sold, the meat or the edible oil, or it's not sold at the price it takes to make in Argentina, but at what price they can get, the big landowners can get on the international market. So this is a chronic problem, but which has grown much worse with the 100% devaluation that the Javier Milei government put into practice in the first week of government, which caused a huge rise in inflation. And what's happening right now is that the owners of big agriculture are not exporting; they're withholding their production, which is a way of pressuring the government, which needs the dollars that are gained through international commerce to pay the foreign debt, but they don't want to sell their harvest until a new devaluation of the peso, which they think will happen soon, is carried out by the government. So they are. This is a form of financial pressure, and if this happens, prices might duplicate, and we'd probably be close to a full-on hyperinflation in our country, which is what these capitalist sectors are pushing for, and what the IMF and others think will probably happen. It says so in the documents. So the situation is already dire because poverty has been rising and has risen sharply in these 6 months, and at the same time they have taken away assistance from the popular soup kitchens. This has been a calculated ploy on Milei's part to try to destroy social organizations and the unemployed workers movement, to the point that as he was accusing unemployed workers' organization of being supposedly corrupt, it has come to public knowledge that he had 6 billion tons of food in warehouses of the state that had been left by the previous government, and he was leaving it to rot instead of giving it out to poor people who are facing growing hunger in the country, and that this even led to a judge forcing the government to hand it out, which they have done to some church-related reactionary neighborhood groups to be the ones who are handing out this food that they were leaving to rot. So it is not just a problem of not wanting to put the money into solving this growing problem of hunger, but it is a direct attack on the social organizations that exist that have been organizing workers along the lines of demanding the generation of work posts from the state and in private sectors, and that have been fighting for social assistance to be able to feed their families of unemployed workers for many years, and organizing many tens of thousands of people in Argentina.
And the military coup in Argentina was supported by the United States. Maybe you can talk about the role of the United States in that military coup, and also the role of the AFL-CIO in Argentina.
Yeah, the coup was in 1976, the last military coup in Argentina, and as many of the previous ones, both reactionary civil governments and military governments in Argentina, it was very much backed by the U.S. Its economic ministers were formed in Chicago or in other U.S. universities and controlled by the IMF, and their military repressors were formed in the School of the Americas by the U.S. Armed Forces. So, of course, the Videla junta was one of the many military dictatorships in Latin America during the 70s and early 80s, where most of the region was under deeply anti-communist dictatorships, which were organized to carry out mass assassinations, repression, to destroy the upsurge in the working class and young people that had been going through the 60s and 70s, which were a time of growth of the revolutionary left, of the class struggle sectors in the unions. And this genocide in Argentina killed over 30,000 people. And the AFL-CIO was very important, mostly in the previous years, previous to the dictatorship, working to consolidate the bureaucratic unions against class struggle tendencies, and to pick leaders in the unions that would work under anti-communist policies of defense of the bourgeois state, and working with bosses and the state against rank and file workers. So there's a lot of documentation on this, and which we've talked about, and which we'll be happy to have reach your hands, to be able to show how in the 60s and the early 70s the AFL-CIO worked at a moment where the Argentine Peronist trade union bureaucracy was consolidating as a structure, as a force. The problem of the military dictatorship is actually a very current one, because the Milei government openly denies the genocide of 30,000 Argentines carried out by the military dictatorship, and says it was there were excesses in a just conflict against leftist guerrilla organizations. Milei's vice president, Victoria Villarruel, is a lawyer who has dedicated her whole life to defending military officers who participated in the genocide, and is herself the daughter of one of these officers who killed Argentine workers and youth in the 70s. So it is a state doctrine that they are trying to push for these military generals and officers being acquitted for their responsibility in the murder of thousands of Argentinians. Last week, one of the Madres de Plaza de Mayo, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, that disappeared, who played a very central role in all these years of struggle, passed away, Nora Cortiñas. So I would like to take advantage to commemorate her and to say that the problem of the military genocide is very much a present problem, because this ultra-right wants to reinstate a larger use of the armed forces in our country, and to deny the atrocities committed under the military junta of Videla is a political step in that direction.
And the role of Peronism in Argentina, it was a Peronist government that people rejected. That Peronist government was actually implementing the policies of the IMF. Is the grip of the Peronist supporters in the unions threatened because of this crisis now in Argentina?
Well, we have to see how things unfold. On the one hand, yes, the Alberto Fernandez government, the previous government in Argentina, was a complete and utter disaster, and led to a further division within the Peronist ranks and big electoral losses. They managed to scratch 30% in the of the vote in the before the runoff, and lost in the final vote in the ballotage, the second round, in most of the provinces of the country. They are now leading 5 local provincial governments out of 24. So it is the lowest electoral moment in Peronist history since its foundation in 1946. They still hold a very important hold over unions, and have other aspects of leadership and political influence, without a doubt. Even after this electoral disaster and the disastrous government, in opposition demonstrations against the Milei government, Peronist or Filo-Peronist, Chavista, center-left sectors are an important component. At the same time, their plan is to administer the levels of opposition and to, as they say, let Milei govern, let people see how bad Milei is, and come back in the next elections. The ex-president and ex-vice president Cristina Kirchner has openly called for this, to not place obstacles in Milei's government, and she's even said many points that he wants to reform are important. For example, there needs to be a labor reform in the country, she said in a over 30-page document that she wrote a few months ago and published as a sort of position paper on how Peronism should conduct itself. Peronist sectors are giving votes to Milei within Congress, while other Peronist sectors are acting in the opposition, which is what they usually do when they are not in government power. They sort of divide the work, and one sector calls itself opposition and one is collaborationist, and then they often reunite when elections come back again. So that is what is happening now. They participate in some demonstrations, but they do not call for a general strike. They do not call for a sustained plan of action, and their tactic is to try to wear out mass struggles against Milei and to reap electoral benefits and to try to be able to regain electoral strength by contrast against the Milei government. We are denouncing this collaborationism, which is pretty public. Many main Peronist figures are even officers or functionaries in the Milei government. Scioli, who was Cristina Kirchner's favorite presidential candidate 2 terms ago, is Secretary of Tourism in the Milei government, and over 60% of those who held government political positions in the Alberto Fernandez government have stayed on in the Milei government in their areas.
And the rise of fascism in the United States and internationally, you may have the election of Trump in the United States and that movement. What would that mean for Argentina?
Well, yeah, the return of Trump would probably give a strong support to Javier Milei. So that's that would be bad news. Of course, the Biden government, which has also extended the level of wars and militarism and supports the genocide in Palestine, and the Milei government in Argentina is no solution either. What we see in Argentina is that though Milei has a fascist discourse and fascist objectives, is very far from being able to install a fascist regime, which would be a totalitarian control of the country and destruction of the workers' movement. His objective to forbid demonstrations has not held up for a single day since he took office, and there have been permanent demonstrations. And he has, though he has won, he has had an electoral rise for a very small force, and has been able to, in a huge crisis of the traditional parties, gain government. He has recently tried to make public rallies in a stadium here in the city of Buenos Aires, presenting a book of his, and then in the city of Córdoba, and he has amassed less than 5,000 people present. In the city of Córdoba, the unions and sectors of the left that marched to oppose his presence in the province on May 25th were far more numerous than those that had come to the rally called by Milei, and were, of course, repressed by police. But he is a very repressive government. If he had his way, he would install a sort of civil dictatorship, but he has not been able to neither stop workers' demonstrations and public political activity, nor has he had the full support of the bourgeoisie to install this sort of personal political power in Argentina. He is, of course, very dangerous. He is, of course, pushing a very repressive agenda, and it is important that, as the Black Lives Matter movement showed, I think in 2020 in the U.S., that with mass demonstrations on the streets, standing up to police repression, these reactionary political figures can be defeated.
And how do you see building an international working class movement? Because obviously the attacks on the working class are not just going on in Argentina, they're going on, workers are being attacked globally. How do you see building an international working class movement?
Yeah, I think that's an urgent need we all have, Steve. As you know, and you have been part of these discussions as well, we recently put out a statement on May Day that points out the need for an internationalist approach, rejecting inter-imperialist war in Ukraine, rejecting, of course, the genocide in Palestine, and giving all support to the Palestinian resistance in its demand for national freedom and for a united Palestine, free Palestine, and to reject the attacks of the bourgeois governments, both the right-wing ones and the supposed center-left progressive ones, which also carry out austerity politics and attacks against the working class, and the need for working class unity. And over a dozen organizations from different countries and continents have signed that, and we are happy that that this month in Buenos Aires, over over a dozen organizations are going to be able to meet here and to discuss. And we are happy to receive the United Front Committee for a Labor Party from the United States, the Comunistas group from Cuba, the Comrades Fuerza 18 de Octubre from Chile, Tribuna Clasista from Brazil, La Fragua from Uruguay, the Comrades of the NADA from Greece, Tirsi Kovas from Italy, the SEP from Turkey, and other comrades who signed the statement, groups from Azerbaijan, Serbia, and Croatia, won't be able to make the trip this time around, but we will have a public meeting to discuss how, on the basis of these principled agreements, we can further promote international working class solidarity, action, and information to strengthen our common struggle.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much, Guillermo. We've been talking with Guillermo Kane. He's a member of the Workers' Party in Argentina, an elected member, the deputy of the Buenos Aires Parliament, and he is talking about and reporting on the growing confrontation between the working class, the unions, and the Milei government. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Steve.